If I was painting a room in 2025, here's what I'd do. I'd go out and buy a Graco X7 paint sprayer. You can get it at any big box dealer, especially at Home Depot. They usually have them in stock. I would invest in a paint sprayer over rolling any day. A project on my list that I just completed was tackling this large living room. It has an A-frame type ceiling that goes all the way up to 16 feet. And then I also had to tackle these large windows that needed to be sprayed. Prices for contracting has been out of control. If I was to call up a local paint guy and tell him to come out here and give me a quote for this, you can look at anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 it would cost out of my pocket for him to do something that I did just under about $300. In this video, I'm going to show you everything that you need to get started, so when you walk away from it, you feel inspired to do it yourself. So let's flash back a couple days where I'm prepping the paint sprayer. This airless paint sprayer I've had for about 2 years. It's a Magnum X7 from Graco. Like I said, you can buy it at any local Home Depot. They normally have it. This thing's a beast. I definitely beat it up through the years. Still sprays completely fine, does the job. It'll run you around $400, give or take. And the paint that I'm using is just regular Behr. It's about $30 a gallon. I've never seen the benefit when you start getting into the Behr Marquee, the Behr Dynasty, the premium paints. I never really saw the difference. It says has superior scuff factor and durability tests and all that other crap. In my eyes, as long as it's a paint and primer in one, then you should be set. The game plan for this is I'm gonna pop the top off the paint can, feed it through this little end nozzle. There's another little nozzle on the side that's like the bleeding tube. Pull that to the side, plug the machine in, and you're gonna turn it on. What you're gonna do is this little handle on the side, you're gonna flip that up, and it's going to bleed and release all the air, gunk, previous paint from a previous job, and you're gonna run it through until it comes out the same paint color that you're working with. Once the machine's primed, you're gonna take the gun and have something laying around, either a cardboard box, a trash can. I actually used a trash bag, and I'm just gonna start spraying into the trash bag. So while I'm spraying it, I'm just looking for the water to just completely drain from the lines. So you'll see over a little bit of time, it'll start to turn white, and that's the color running through the hose. Then I'm gonna kill it, and we're good to go. We should be ready for paint. Also, just check for holes in the trash bag before you spray the paint. Before spraying, I'm gonna put on a mask. Some people wear a full-on jumpsuit and eye goggles and all this other stuff. I'm not gonna be spraying for too long, so it's not that huge of a deal.
My typical rule of thumb when painting any type of room is to start with the ceiling first. You can see when I spray the corners where the ceiling meets the wall, some overspray occurs. Here it's not going to be an issue because my workflow is from a top-down approach, going from the ceiling to the walls, then finish the baseboards last. However, if I started on the walls first and worked my way to the ceiling, I'd have to spend more time re-rolling the uneven paint layer.
Now while the paint's still wet, I'm gonna take a roller, and it's called back rolling. So I'm gonna go lightly over the spot that I just sprayed. This just makes sure that the finish is correct. So any dings or dents in the future, if something was to hit the ceiling or the walls, I can easily patch it and then go ahead and roll it, and you'll never notice. If I was to leave the whole thing sprayed, the finish would be different. And if there was a patch that would be in the future, I couldn't roll it. I'd have to spray it again because you would obviously see the two different textures of the finish. So just a quick tip to back roll if you decide to spray. I am gonna do it on the ceiling. That is a little bit overkill because it's like, okay, who's gonna be fixing patches in the ceiling? It's more likely gonna be the walls. But it's like, why not?
This part of the room is hard to tell the difference from what I'm spraying versus the color that's currently on the walls. This area was my wife's like experimental area. She would paint the ceiling and the walls this color, but it was so hard and took a couple days to determine what color to go with because there's so much light in this room from those large windows. She'd paint it, then in the morning it would look nice and light and bright, and then towards the evening the color on the walls would change more into a darker hue. So we were debating on whether to go back and forth with different colors, but we ended up going with, it's called Alpaca Blanket from Behr, and we just felt like it looked the best at any time of the day. The two most challenging parts of painting our living room was the prep work and painting the peak of the ceiling that you'll see in this next clip. Prep work alone took around 2 hours to complete, and that included taping all the windows, rolling out the paper to protect the floors, so on, yada yada. We also had a couch rug, coffee table that all needed to be moved from our living room to our dining room for the time being. This was the most boring part of the project, but at the same time most crucial. If you want that satisfying reveal at the end of the project and really standing back to admire your work, you can't skip out on all the preparation. If you're struggling to focus and just absolutely dread this part of the project, just throw on a podcast or Audible book. It makes the time go by so much faster. Side note, I just finished Project Hail Mary, 10 out of 10 recommend. And a podcast recommendation would be My First Million on YouTube. Now on to painting the peak of the ceiling. I'd set up 2 ladders, one 14-foot and the other 6-foot. And I would just bounce back from ladder to ladder, just trying my best to keep a nice, even layer of paint. This is where it started to get a little bit messy. Since I was spraying overhead, a lot of the paint residue got on my clothes, hat, shoes. But good thing these are all my quote-unquote work clothes, so I didn't mind that I got paint on them. If you do care, you can go and buy a coverall, aka a painter's jumpsuit at Home Depot for like 18 bucks. It's made from a polyester material, and on the packaging it claims that its fabric is breathable. However, every time I've used one, it's just so uncomfortable, especially in these hot summer months in Maryland. The humidity's around like 75, 80%. Just to walk away, instead of a jumpsuit, it's more of a sweatsuit. I try to visualize and break down the ceiling in 4-foot wide sections. It's a good enough distance for me to keep a nice, even spray. Also, I don't want to double cover any area since I'm down to my last gallon of paint. At this point, I calculated I needed around 3 gallons to completely paint the living room, but in the end, I come up short.
It's been a couple hours since my last spray. I was tackling the windows, caulking, filling in all the holes, sanding. Now they're finally ready for a nice coat of paint. I'm just gonna go ahead and spray that the same color I did as the walls will be the window trim as well. It is 8 o'clock. I'm tapping out for tonight. I'll be in here tomorrow. We'll finish the windows and paint the trim, and we'll do a final reveal. We're back and we're gonna tackle some windows. Just to put everything into perspective, the top of the peak of the A-frame is 16 foot. So I have a large ladder that I'm gonna just kind of be hovering back and forth like I did when I was spraying. So the game plan is, because it's trim, I'm gonna do 2 coats. So the first coat I'm just gonna do nice and light, check for any imperfections. Before we start spraying, let me show you how I left the paint sprayer. What I did was take a piece of plastic, cut it around and put it over top of the gallon bucket of paint. Just took some painter's tape, wrapped it around just to keep a nice seal on it. This is fine for, you know, if you're gonna paint. Like I said, I stopped last night, I came in first thing in the morning, I'm gonna just spray, so about 24 hours. If you're gonna do longer than that, you know, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days in between each spray, I definitely would recommend just cleaning it all out and getting a fresh start. Last thing you want to do is to have paint dry up, so when you go to paint it, the gun will jam more, it'll be an uneven spray, it'll just look bad. So to prevent all that, just clean before each use.
Probably going to get some people fired up on how I left the paint sprayer the day before, but like I said, I've only had problems when I left it out for multiple days at a time. 2, 3, 4, 5 days, then I start experiencing some issues. But 24 hours, never had any issues. There's definitely been some times where I left the sprayer out on accident, especially when we were painting the outside of the house. It's been multiple days I thought I put it away, and I completely forgot about it, and it was a nightmare. Paint dried throughout the entire machine. It spent about an hour and a half to clean everything out. Like I said, that was almost like 3 or 4 days that I left it outside.
That was the first coat of paint. It went on really well. I'm gonna let that dry for around 30 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and switch gears. I need to tackle these baseboards. I don't wanna spray them. I just bought a little foam roller, and I'm just gonna kind of roll it on the actual baseboard itself. That's going on. Also, we're running out of paint. This is my last gallon of this color of paint, so really don't want to go to Home Depot again just to buy one singular paint bucket, but I think we'll have to. I just went over and checked the windows. They're dry to touch. There are some areas that still have little knot holes or still need to be just sanded down a little bit even after the first coat of paint, and that's exactly what I was looking for. So I'm gonna go back over and fill in and just do little touch-ups with this dry Dex. I'm just taking a little bit, running my finger into the hole and then letting it dry. It'll go from pink to white. When it's ready to sand, quick hit a little sand, and then we'll go ahead and do the last coat of paint. And other than that, it should be good.
This time around on the windows, I'm making sure every inch is covered with paint, still spraying the nozzle in short bursts to prevent any runs, but just taking my time to double check, triple check that I don't miss any spots. Because after this coat, I'm putting this machine away for good. I'm going to clean it out, put it in the garage, and retire it for quite some time. It took about 2 days to paint this entire living room, and I don't want to touch another gallon of paint for quite some time.
The last coat of paint is on the windows. It's dry to touch. Now it's time for the satisfying part. I'm going to take a razor blade knife and just score the outside, not hard, but just score the outside where the painter's tape meets the window. So when I go pull the painter's tape, it doesn't have any tear out on the window. Maybe some paint comes with it. It's just looking for a nice, clean, satisfying reveal. Beautiful. I just finished putting all the outlet covers on, removing all the plastic, prepping everything, and returning it back to normal. Everything's good to go. I am gonna leave this protective paper down below just because the next project is tackling wood beams at the top. I'm gonna do some type of casing. So now the moment of truth, I'm gonna go over all the costs associated with the project just to kind of give you a ballpark, because I want you to tackle a project like this yourself. There is nothing but upside, trust me. If it sucks and turns out bad, you're only out maybe $100 in paint. It's not that big of a deal compared to other trades that you would DIY, like electric, plumbing. If things go sideways, you're down bad. Let's talk about the cost for prep work. That would include the roll of plastic, runs you about $20. 2 painter tape rolls, that's like $18. The protective paper for the flooring, can't forget about that. That runs you about $20 to $30. And then you're talking, you know, caulking and dry decks for the windows, filling all the holes and stuff like that for the trim. All in, I'm running at around $95. And again, I'm not using all of it, so I still have some left over for the next project. So, but that is just the initial cost to cover and prep for paint. The next is when you're actually painting. I used 4.5 gallons of just regular Behr Premium Plus paint. It's just standard, runs about $32 a gallon. I needed a large roller. I had the actual pole. I just needed another roller for it, an 18-inch roller. That ran me around $10. And the paint tray, which is another $10. So for the painting portion of it, it ran me about $150. So all in, I'm about $245 to $250 to cover all the materials that I needed to do, which is far below what the actual cost is to get a contractor to come in and professionally paint it. If you're like, screw it, I don't have anything at all, and I need to go out and get a paint sprayer, I need to go out and get this large 14-foot ladder, that I need to go out and get another pole, extended pole to roll, I need all this extra stuff, and you literally are starting with nothing. Even if we add in an extra $1,000, $1,500 that you're putting out to buy the equipment, you're still in at $1,700 compared to what someone would quote this room right here anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000. So just consider that next time when you're painting. Definitely hope at the end of the video that you walked away inspired to do your own room. I'm out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out other videos. I actually just put in a smart lock. I've had it for about a month now, but it's supposed to last up to 2 years. It's only $49. I'm gonna leave that video right here. It's a whole tutorial guide, highly recommend. Anyway, that's all I got, so I'll see you on the next one.